Are you thinking about being fitted for your next set of golf clubs? It's something that we would recommend, but we also think that it's important that you ask yourself some key questions before you go for that fitting. If you answer them honestly, these are going to help you go with the right focus so that you walk away with exactly the right set of golf clubs for your game. We're here at the London Club and we're going to run through our list of 10 questions you should be asking yourself before you go for a golf club fitting. What is the weakest area of your game? Now, this one might sound a bit negative, but like so many of these, it's about being honest with yourself and then telling the fitter, because the fitter is there to help you. Now, it might well be that you struggle with your wedges, that you really feel like you're inconsistent with your pitching or your ball striking, and it might well be, like for many golfers out there, they really struggle with the top end of the bag, the kind of long irons or hybrids into fairway woods. Now, this hole here at the London Club, this is 177 yards. As you can see, it's all over water. It's a really difficult shot, and the truth is, there's no bailout on a hole like this. You've got to be able to hit a good shot. So if you want to improve at golf, you need all areas of the bag to work for you. And that means finding long irons and hybrids that really do work for you. So, as I said, it might sound a bit negative, but work out what actually, in truth, is the weakest area of your game. And then be prepared, feel free to tell the fitter, because that fitter can really help you find a shaft spec and a head that's really going to help you get the ball up and away with ease, so that when you're confronted with difficult situations on the golf course, you've got the clubs that are really going to help you. Whereabouts do you play? Now, this is a really important one to think about, because you'll either play a lot of golf at a lot of different places, or you'll tend to focus on one golf course. And if you fall into the latter camp, then you really need to think about the demands that that golf course puts on your shoulders. So I'm here at the London Club, and this is a fairly exposed venue. So one of the things you have to do well if you play here is you have to be able to control your ball flight. It often gets quite windy, so you'll need to hit little punch shots. You'll also, preferably if you really want to score low, be able to hold the ball in crosswinds. So it's something that you need to think about. Each golf course will have its own set of demands. It might be that those demands come from the ground conditions, so you need to be really good off really tight lies. Equally, you might need to play well when it's quite wet, because it gets wet underfoot. Whatever the conditions of your golf course, whatever the demands of your golf course, think about them, and then tell the fitter, say, you know, I play on a really windy golf course, so anything you can do to help me control that ball flight. The fitter is an expert, they'll be there to help you, and you could walk away with a golf club that's just right for you on the golf course that you play most of your golf at. Are you taking lessons, and is your handicap coming down? Now, none of us play golf to get worse. We're all trying to get better, but the question is, how seriously are you taking that progression? Because it might well be that the pro that's running through your swing changes is also the best person to advise you on equipment changes, making sure that they set up the clubs so that they work in tune with the swing changes you're trying to make. In addition to that, obviously, in the metalwoods, it does make sense to be fitted into clubs that you can then make setup changes to, so adjustable clubs where you can change the loft of the driver or set up the weights in a position to suit your swing as it changes. This is all about trying to find a set of golf clubs that work for you, not just on the day of the fitting and for a few weeks after, but in the long run. And so think smartly about whether you're going through lessons. If you are, then perhaps the best person to advise you on golf clubs is the same person that's advising you on the golf swing. How important are the looks and the feel of the golf club to you? Now, I think it's fair to say that we all want a set of golf clubs that look great in the bag, but actually far more important than how they look in the bag is how do they look when you set them down behind the ball? Are they confidence inspiring? Do you feel like you can make a confident swing? Because if you do, chances are the quality of swings that you make with those clubs will be better, and it's a really important part of the equation. The other thing I'll say is about the feel. If you're getting fitted indoors, then in our experience, and we've done a lot of this, it's quite hard to get a real sense for the differences in feel between different golf clubs in an indoor hitting environment. It's much easier to pick up on the differences outside, because ultimately sound and feel are pretty much the same thing in golf. How do they sound through impact? That's what gives you that feel. And if feel is really important to you, then, and then you're not 100% sure about the clubs that you're being fitted for, then maybe ask the fitter, ask the pro if you can just step outside and hit a few shots with them in an outdoor range just to get that little bit more of a sense of how they feel. These are the sort of unquantifiable ingredients that actually can make a big difference to a good golf club fitting. Is the makeup of the set likely to change? Now this stems from this idea that modern day irons are becoming stronger and stronger in terms of their loss. At Golf Monthly we tend to test 7 irons when we test irons, and we're seeing those 7 irons getting stronger every year. So it's not uncommon for a 7 iron now to have a loft of less than 30 degrees, often 29 degrees, which is great because it means that you're hitting the ball further, and the manufacturers are doing a brilliant job of increasing the launch angle, so you still get the same ball flight, but it can cause you a little bit of an issue in terms of your gapping, in particular at the bottom end of the bag. You might find that there's a bit of a distance gap between your pitching wedge and your first sort of specialist wedge down at the bottom end of the bag. Look, it's something to think about. If you're getting fitted for irons, chances are you might have to make tweaks to those gapping areas both at the bottom end of the bag and at the top end of the bag. It's something that's well worth speaking to your fitter about. Do you have one consistent shot shape, or do you prefer to hit lots of different types of shots, so fades, draws, punch shots? It's a really important question because it can have a big bearing on the type of irons in particular that you walk away with. So for me, for instance, I'm a 5 handicapper. I'm definitely not the best ball striker in the world, and yet for me I'm much better at golf when I have a very clear picture in my mind of the shot that I'm trying to hit. So I tend to hit a draw, and yet on the golf course from time to time I will want to hit fades every now and again, so having a set of irons that helps me do that is really important. So if you do like to hit lots of different shots with your irons, tell the fitter that. That's important information. And likewise, if you have one fairly consistent shot shape, it might be that you hit a 10-yard draw 90% of the time, and you turn up on the fitting, and for whatever reason on the day of the fitting that draw has turned into a slight fade, mention that to the fitter. The more information that you can give to your fitter, the better the ultimate outcome will be. How much are you willing to spend? Obviously, it's really important that before you go for a fitting, you work out what your budget is. And the only way to do that is to do some research before you go in for that fitting. So you'll find reviews of the vast majority of golf clubs on the market on the Golf Monthly website. You'll also find pricing information as well. So that will give you a kind of a rough idea of the sort of prices that you'll be paying for the kind of golf equipment that you think you might be fitted into. Now, it might well be that you go into that fitting knowing exactly the golf club that you want, but it might also be that you want to try out quite a few different golf clubs. So having that kind of budget set before you go in is a good idea. The other thing to mention is that many of the manufacturers offer aftermarket shafts that can come with an upcharge over the standard shafts that come as stock with those golf clubs. Again, it's something worth bearing in mind. If the fitter wants to go down the aftermarket route, really the fitter should mention the uplift in price before you start testing those shafts. But it's worth mentioning, it's worth thinking about knowing what the stock shafts are with certain golf clubs, just so that you don't get any nasty surprises when it comes to paying for the clubs that you've been fitted for. What would make a bigger difference to your scoring? Hitting the ball further or hitting it straighter? It's a really important question to answer, especially when you're being fitted for your woods, because here it can make all the difference. Now, the chances are if you go for a custom fitting, you will hit the ball further. You'll see an increase. I'd be surprised if you didn't, because the custom fitters are so good at eking out more yardage. But it's worth bearing in mind, if you feel like more accuracy would make a difference, then tell that to your fitter. Say, look, I'm not after an extra 20 yards off the tee. Obviously, any extra is great, but what I'm really looking for is to hit a few more fairways, and this tends to be my shot pattern. That's the sort of information, if you can give to your fitter, that they can factor in to the fitting. They can really dial you into a golf club that, yes, it will probably be longer, but it will certainly be straighter as well. It can make all the difference. What is your go-to shot? It's a vitally important question, especially when you're getting fitted for a new driver. So what I'd say here is picture yourself on the hardest hole of the golf course that you play most often. Which hole gives you the most trouble? And think about the shot that you want to hit off that tee. So would you prefer to try to hit a fade or a draw? What sort of swing are you trying to make in that scenario in order to find the fairway? So during the fitting, try to sort of imagine that scenario, try to sort of put a little bit of pressure on your shoulders and then hit that shot with the club that you're being fitted for. It will just give you a sense of how comfortable you feel trying to hit your go-to shot. It's really important. If you want to walk away with a golf club that you can hit under pressure, that you can hit on the hardest holes that you face, then thinking about your go-to shot is an absolute must. Where do you most commonly miss? For me, this is probably the most important question you need to ask yourself before you go for a fitting, and it relates to whether you're being fitted for drivers or irons or wedges, whatever it is. Think about your shot pattern, because it can make a big difference. If you're more likely to miss right than you are to miss left, tell that to the fitter, because the fitter can do some stuff with the setup of the golf club that's really going to help you guard against your miss. It might be that in the irons you walk away with the set with a little bit more offset, with a driver that you have something that's a little bit draw biased, that's going to help you get a little bit more distance and a little bit more accuracy as well. Because it might well be that on the day of the fitting you hit the ball really well, you hit it perfectly straight. It's still worth mentioning to the fitter what your kind of miss is, because there are things that can be done, and if it helps you to walk away with a set that gets you round the golf course when you aren't swinging your best, it's got to be worth it. So there you have it, that's our list of the 10 questions you should ask yourself before you go for a golf club fitting. Guys, if you have any more questions, please do post them below. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have about the whole process. And likewise, if you've been through a club fitting and you've got any experiences that you'd like to share, it would be really interesting to hear your thoughts. Also, don't forget, please do hit the subscribe button to make sure that you don't miss any of our videos. Hit that little notification bell so that you know whenever we publish a video. But for now, from the London Club, it's goodbye.